Welcome to lesson 60. It's that time of year. You know what time it is, right? Lesson 60, people. This is halfway through the book. You're doing awesome. You're doing great. And today, and hopefully, we can really stop using this word. You've learned this already. Though you've learned a lot. You're a great math student. Let's continue on. Be confident. Let's talk about fractional parts of numbers and percent of a number. We can break down this problem right here. It says, what number is 6/10 of 31? So, I have an unknown. What number is 6/10 of 31? Anyone know how to solve this problem? All the clues are right there for us, and we can solve this problem by looking at this and solving. So let's go ahead and do. And just like magic, we have solved this problem, right? Probably best to rearrange. So we're multiplying by the 6. We're going to get, ignore the decimal, 186, put the decimal back in, 18.6 is what our W equals. All right, that wasn't too challenging. Right? So how about you go ahead and do this one? 3/5 of 120 is what number? With that review, then, we can move kind of away from the fractional parts and talk about percentages. Though in reality, what we're looking at here is the same concept, because percents, fractions, and decimals are all related. And so since they're all related, we can work together to solve this problem. We just got to make sure that we transform our percentage into either a decimal or fractional form that we can easily multiply by. So for example, it says the jacket sold for $75. 40% of the selling price was profit. How much money is 40% of 75? So our problem here breaks it all down, right? Is, of course, means equals. Much money, our M, we don't know what that is. And we're going to take 40% of $75. Now, before we can actually start solving this, we got to take that percentage and we want to turn it into either a fraction form or a decimal form. Now, from my perspective, I like to go to the decimal form. I like the relationship. It makes more sense, and to me, it seems to connect. But the fractional parts make more sense to you. Okay, I'm going to go the decimal route because I think in the long run, it's a technique that's going to serve you more often. Here we go, 40%. If I want 40% and I want it as a decimal, right, I'm going to divide by 100%. And just like that, technically the fraction form is already there. But as we've learned in past lessons, we know that when you divide a number by 100, the decimal, which was technically right here, moves to the right, to the left. And of course, 2 zeros, 2 places. So at the end, we come away with 0.4 times $75 equals M. And like magic, we have this question solved. We took 75 times 4. 75 times 4 gives us 300. And then, of course, we moved our decimal over 1 place, add a label, and technically, because it's money, we're going to throw another 0 in there. Or we can just write how much money equals $30. All right, let's take a look at another one. So this one gives us another application of using a percentage, just with a different situation. But in the end, we're going to do a similar process, right? A certain used car salesperson receives a commission of 8% of the selling price of a car. if the salesperson sells a car for $10,800, how much is the salesperson's commission? So we're going to look at this as our equation. We're looking for 8% of the amount of the car, and that's going to equal her commission. All right? And so we have that concept. So once again, what do we need to do? We want to transform this into a decimal by dividing by 100. And divide by 100, we're going to get 0.08 times this $10,000. All right? So this is where we're at now. And the work magically appears. I don't know how it happens, but it's good. All right, so 10,800 times that 8%, so that's 8 hundredths. So we multiplied, and we can see the work, right? 8 times 10,800 gives us this number, 86,400. But then we put our decimal places back in and get a final answer of $864. Not bad just for convincing someone to buy a car. Not bad at all. Right? That's a nice, what is that? $864 every, what's that, 10 minutes? Half an hour of bidding? That'd be a nice rate of pay. All right, let's move on. Why don't you go ahead and take this sample, oops, went too far. Take this sample problem and figure out what 25% of 88 is. Then our last example here is dealing with sales tax. And this one I said sales tax. Some of you just seem to like to shut down and say, this is the worst thing in the world. And in some sense, it really isn't fun paying taxes on things we buy. We wish they would just give us the price. However, finding the sales tax is not something that needs to scare us. We just need to follow the processes that we've learned already. The biggest problem that most students have with this is just answering the question that is being asked. Right? So sometimes the questions just ask for the tax. Sometimes it asks for the total price. Now in this case, we're actually going to solve for both. So we're going to show how to do both steps. So it says a bicycle is on sale for $119.95. The tax is 6%. So what is that 6%? Or the tax? That's what it means. So we want to know what 6% of or times 119.95 really is. All right? All right, so we plugged in, this works. We have $119.95 times our 6%. So we took the 6% and we transformed that 6% into 6 hundredths here, just like that. Now, I've solved, right? I've ignored the decimal. I've come away with this number, but now I need to put the decimal place back in, right? So we got 1, 2, and then 3, 4. So we got phantom decimal, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So in the end, we come away with this idea, $7.19, and wait a minute, what is all of that stuff? Okay, from our understanding of numbers, we know that money, right, only goes 2 place values. So it would end after this 9, just like this. So what do we need to do? What we have to do is we got to look at this, and basically we want to round up. Right? Most places don't want to get rid of those spare pennies, those fractions of a penny. And so in typically most cases we want to round up to the nearest penny. So to round up to the nearest penny would give us a final answer of $7.20. And so we have that idea. All right? So that gives us the answer to letter A. What is the tax on the bicycle? Letter B then asks, well, what is the total price then? Okay, well, the total price then is going to be our initial price plus this 6%. So $119.95 plus $127.20. So we come away with an answer of $127.15. Right? So if we're looking for total price, we got to find the tax and then add it back in. If we're just looking for a tax, it's just the multiplication times that percentage. All right. Then here's one sample problem to get you on your way as you work with sales tax or tax in general. That's it for lesson 60.